So top of the page in the middle, we've got our song title, Gunning for Funk. To the left-hand side, it says funk rock. So that's our genre or the style of the piece. Then beside that, it says a quarter note equals 105. So that's the tempo of the piece. So we've got a quarter note pulse, and there's 105 quarter notes every minute. Beneath that, we've got our first bar of music. So you can see we've got our percussion clef, which tells us there's drum notation on the stave, and beside that we've got our time signature. So the time signature for this piece is 4/4. The 4 at the top tells you there's 4 beats in the bar. 4 at the bottom tells you each one of those beats is a quarter note. Okay, so we've got 4 quarter note beats in the bar. So in the first bar we're actually just playing quarter notes, and the quarter notes are on the hi-hat, so we're going to play them on with the right hand. Okay, so we're just going to play those downbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. For that first bar. Beneath the bar, you've got an MF, which is short for mezzo forte, which means half loud. So you're going to play them about your normal playing level. So remember, half loud is about your normal playing level. So you've got 4 quarter notes on the hi-hat as quarter notes. And then in the second bar, you've got the same thing. So quarter notes on the hi-hat again. Okay, so we're going to just try those 2 bars now. So just hitting those downbeats at mezzo forte. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's 2 bars there on the hi-hat as quarter notes, and then in the next bar you're playing 8th notes on the hi-hat, so you're playing the subdivision 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and on the hi-hat, again all with the right hand, and you're playing the bass drum on the 1 for a quarter note, you've got a quarter note rest on 2, playing the bass drum on the 3 for a quarter note and resting on the 4. So you're just hitting that 1 and 3 on the bass drum. Okay, so 8th notes on the hi-hat, 1 and 3 on bass drum, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to try that bar first of all 4 times through at the song tempo, which is 105 beats per minute. So it's quite a fast tempo, so just make sure those 8th notes are nice and evenly spaced, and you're hitting those downbeats and those ands, right in the middle of the beat, those ands, remember. Bass drum on the 1 and the 3. Okay, so let's try just that. Bar 3, we'll try it 4 times through with a metronome. And then in bar 4, you've still got those 8th notes for the first 2 beats on the hi-hat. You've got 1 and 2 and on the hi-hat. The bass drum is now playing the downbeats of 1 and 2. Okay, so you play the 1 and the 2. So we'll try that first half of the bar first. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the first half of bar number 4, and then you've got a fill for the other half of the bar. So you've got beats 3 and 4 in the second half of the bar. So for that half of the bar, the rhythm is 3E and a 4, and so you've got 16th notes on the 3, 8th notes on the 4. So on the 16th notes, you've got a mid-tom or a medium tom on the 3, and then the snare drum plays the E and A. So you're just going to play that as single strokes. So you've got 3E and A, so we'll try that now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, so that's 3E and A, so just rolling down from that mid-tom in 16th notes. And then for the 4 ands, you've got the first 8th note on the snare drum with the right hand, and then you come up to the high tom with the left hand. Okay, so for the ands, you got putting those 2 beats together, so you got 3E and a 4 ands. You come down from the mid-tom, finish the 3rd beat with the left hand on the snare, and then you start the 4th beat with the right hand on snare. Come up with the left hand on the high tom. Okay, so mid tom starts with the right hand, playing the snare notes, and then high tom hits with the left hand. So those 2 beats are 1, 2. Okay, and you can see there's some arrows above the notes, so remember they are accents, which mean you need to play those notes with more force, more emphasis. Okay, so you've got an accent on the 3, which is the mid tom, so you're going to play that nice and loud, put some emphasis on that note. So you've got, and then the 4 and, both of those 8th notes have both got accents. You need to hit them both with emphasis. So you got that 4 and, snare, high tom. Okay, so let's try those 2 beats now with the accents. Okay, and that's a really sort of Motown style feel. Okay, so it's a nice feel. So now we'll put bar 4 together. So we've got those 2 halves of the bar. We've got half a bar where we're playing those hi-hats as 8th notes, bass drum on 1 and 2, and then playing that fill with the accents in for the 3 and 4. Okay, so let's try the whole of bar 4 now in time with the metronome. And now we'll try putting the whole line together. Okay, so you've got the 2 bars of quarter notes on the hi-hat, and then we come into those 8th notes, bass drum on 1 and 3, carry on with the 8th notes into bar 4, bass drum on 1 and 2, and then playing the fill with the accents. Okay, so let's try the whole of line 1, putting it all together now, all 4 of them bars. And now we're going to try line 1 with a backing track. Okay, so like it says at the top of this piece, this genre is funk rock. Okay, and it's actually more specifically 60s funk rock. Okay, so this piece is actually inspired by a TV program called Peter Gunn, which was televised in the 60s in America. And there's a funk piece, which is the theme music, which was composed by Henry Mancini. So it's very similar to that if you know the program. Okay, obviously you can check the theme tune out if you want to kind of listen to it, just to kind of get an idea of how it sounds. But that's the style it is. Okay, so 60s funk rock. And what you're doing in this line is you're kind of building the energy. So when we play it with the backing track, you've got the counting of 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the music's actually going to start at the 4, so we've got a 1 beat pickup bar. So you'll hear the music come in the 4, but obviously you're coming in on the 1 of the first bar. So just hear that 4, don't let it throw you, or obviously don't come in with that with the rest of the band on the 4. You want to wait for that 1 to play those quarter notes, and you're just building up the energy. So it's like an intro line. Okay, so you've got the hi-hats playing on their own at mezzo forte, then the bass drum joins in, just playing the 1 and 3, then it gets a bit more intense where it hits the 1 and the 2, and then you've got that fill, which kind of really builds the energy into the next line. Now that fill at the end of the first line is a Motown style fill, okay? So it's really nice because it comes down from the mid tom, finishes on that high tom, so nice high pitch to take us into the next part of the song. Okay, just make sure you're hitting those accents to really get, really make sure that fill sounds how it's supposed to sound. Okay, so let's try line 1 now in time with the backing track. So now we come into line 2. So at the start of line 2, you can see there's a letter A in a box there. So that's just letting you know the section. So we're coming on to section A of the song. So like I said before, that first line was like an intro. Now it's brought us into section A, the first section of the song. Okay, you can see we've got a 5 there above the first bar. So that's just letting you know we're at bar 5 of the piece. So in bar 5, we've got a groove. So you've got 8th notes on the cymbal. So you've got that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and rhythm. We've got the crash on the 1 and the rest of the 8th notes on the hi-hat. Okay, and you can see above the crash you've got an accent, so you need to hit that crash with some nice emphasis. So you played the fill at the end of the intro line, and now we really need to explode into this groove. Okay, so we're hitting a nice big accent on the crash. Then we've got a second rhythm underneath those 8th notes on the bass and snare. So the bass is playing the 1 for a quarter note, snare drum on the 2 for a quarter note, then we've got 8th notes on the 3 on the bass drum, then we've got a snare on the 4. So you've got that normal snare on 2 and 4, that backbeat, and the bass drum's playing the 1 and the 3 and. Okay, the 8th note's on 3 and. Right, so that groove sounds like this. So we got... Okay, then in the second bar, which is very common in funk, we've got more upbeats. So we've got more upbeats on that bass drum. So the hi-hats are carrying on playing 8th notes. The snare drum's still playing that 2 and 4, and then the bass drum's playing the 1, the and of 1, the and of 2, and the and of 3. So like I said, those upbeats, remember those upbeats, that weaker part of the beat in 8th notes where we're hitting the ands. Okay, so the bass and snare rhythm is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so like I said, it just gives you that real funk feel. So if we play that whole bar, so adding in the hi-hats as well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now this is actually a 2-bar groove, which is played at different parts in the song. So we're going to try to put those 2 bars together, bars 5 and 6, the first 2 bars of section A, to play our 2-bar groove. So we've got that crash on the 1 of the first bar, so we're going to put that in. So let's try bars 5 and 6, 4 times through those 2 bars, and we're still at mezzo forte. So we've had no dynamic change since we started a mezzo forte at the top of the piece. So let's try bars 5 and 6. And as we're playing a 2-bar groove, we come back to that first bar of the 2-bar groove in the next bar, so in bar 3 of line 2. And then in the 4th bar, we're changing it up. So we've got a very classic groove from that era. So we've got alternating double quavers or double 8th notes between the bass drum and snare drum. So you've got 8th notes on the bass drum, 1 and, 8th notes on the snare drum, 2 and then 8th notes on the bass drum, 3 and, 8th notes on the snare drum, 4 and, okay? So it's actually the groove from the Batman theme. All right, so you'll recognize it as I play it. So that 4th bar of line 2, which is the first line of section A, we got this. Okay, so we're gonna put those 2 bars together now. So the 3rd bar of the first line of section A, which is the 2nd line of the piece, and then the 4th bar as well. So bars 7 and 8 of the piece. So we'll try putting those 2 bars together. So do you recognise that double quaver groove from the Batman theme? So you got alternating between the bass and the snare drum. And that brings us to the end of line 2, which is the first line of section A. So let's try that whole line now. So we've got a 2-bar groove, and then we come into the first bar of the 2-bar groove and just a change up where we're playing that Batman style groove in the end of line 2. Okay, so let's try the whole of line 2. And now we come into the next line of section A, which is the 3rd line of the piece. So you can see we've got a number 9 by the first bar of this line, letting you know it's bar 9 of the piece. So the first 3 bars of this line are the same as the first 3 bars of the previous line. So you've got that 2-bar groove, and then you've got the first bar of the 2-bar groove in the 3rd bar. Okay, so we just got another change up in the 4th bar of this line. So in this line, at the end of the line, we've got a 1-bar fill. So you've got 8th notes in this fill for the 1, 2 and 3. So you've got 1 and 2 and 3 and then you've got 16th notes on the downbeat and an 8th note on the upbeat on the 4, which is 40 and. Okay, so you've got 1 and 2 and between the snare and kick. So you've got snare, kick, snare, kick. So we're going to play right kick, left kick, just to make sure we're using both hands. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you come up to the high tom for your 3 ands. We're going to play right, left. And then you've got 4E and. You've got the 4E on the mid tom. So you're going to play right, left. And then we've got a floor tom with the right hand on the and of 4. So you've got 3 and 4E ands. We'll try that now, just those 2 counts. So we've got 1, 2. Okay, so 3 and 4E and. So the whole fill together, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 40 and. Okay, so that's the 1-bar fill, and then you can see beneath it you've got a crescendo. So you need to get louder as you play this fill. So we're going to add those dynamics. So we're at mezzo forte still as we start this fill, which we've been at for the whole piece so far, and then we're going to crescendo up. And you can see at the start of the next line we've got an F, which is short for forte, which means loud. So we want to take this from mezzo forte, which is half loud, all the way to loud. So we want to just get that one dynamic louder. Okay, so it's not a massive increase, it's not a big crescendo, we're just going from mezzo forte to forte. Okay, so make sure you're getting louder in this fill. So let's try just the fill now with the crescendo. We'll try it 4 times again. Now, as we have a 2-bar groove, so we're phrasing this part in 2 bars, we're going to play the previous bar as well, just to put those 2 bars together. Okay, so we're going to play bar 11 and bar 12. So you're going to play that fill you just played and the previous bar, so the one before it as well. So we're going to put that groove in. Okay, so let's try bars 11 and 12. So make sure you start bar 11 with the groove at mezzo forte, and then when you go into the fill, make sure you crescendo into forte. Okay, so let's try those 2 bars 4 times through. And now we'll try the whole of line 3. Okay, so you've got the same 3 bars you played in the previous line, and then we just need to go into this fill, make sure we've got that crescendo on the fill. Okay, so let's try the whole of line 3. So that brings us to the end of section A, so we're going to try play the whole section now, so lines 2 and 3 of the piece. So you've got a 2-bar groove, and then you come back to the first bar of the groove, then you've got to change up in the 4th bar of both lines. Okay, in the first line in that 4th bar, you've got that iconic Batman style double quaver groove, and then in the 4th bar of the next line, you've got that big fill. Okay, that 1-bar fill. Now at the end of that 1-bar fill, at the end of section A, you've got the rhythm 3 and 40 and around the toms. Now that's a very common rhythm we hear a lot, especially in this style of music. So we call that rhythm flats in dagenham, okay, because that's how it sounds as we play it. So you got 3 and 40 and flats in dagenham. Okay, so just something to say that can help you with the rhythm of that fill. All right, so let's try the whole of section A now, putting it all together. And don't forget that dynamic change in the last bar of section A where we're playing that fill. We want to bring up the energy. Okay, so let's try the whole of section A. So now we're going to try section A with a backing track. So obviously when you played the first line with a backing track, you were just building the energy. The song was just building, and you played that Motown fill, and now that Motown fill is taking us into section A. So this is where the song really starts and the rest of the band come in, the brass comes in. So you have to make sure you're playing a really steady, solid groove, okay? So remember, we're playing funk music, so everything's got to be nice and crisp, so make sure everything's really tight in the right place. And the hi-hat's nice and tight. You're just hitting it with the tip of the stick on top of the cymbal. Okay, so keep that groove solid, and then those change-ups nice and solid to refresh the groove for the next line. And obviously we're finishing with that big fill. Okay, and that big fill is taking us into another section of the music. Make sure you got that crescendo to really build that energy at the end of section A. So let's try section A now in time with the backing track. So now we come into section B, so you can see we've got the letter B in a box there above the first bar of line 4 of the piece, that you know it's section B. And above the first bar of section B, you can see the number 13, just that you know it's bar 13 of the piece. So looking at bar 13, we've got a crash on the 1 with the bass drum. We've got 16th notes on the 2 on the snare drum. We've got 16th notes on the 3 on the high tom, and then we've got an 8th note on the snare on the 4, and a crash with the bass drum on the and of 4. Okay, so we're starting and ending with crashes in this bar. We've got a right hand crash at the start of the bar, left hand crash at the end of the bar. Okay, now it works well when you've got 2 crashes, one on the right side of the kit, one on the left side of the kit, but it's not essential, okay? But I'm going to use my second crash. If I crash with the right hand, I'm going to hit the crash on the right side of the kit. If I crash with the left hand, I'm going to crash on the left side of the kit. So remember, if you've only got one crash, you can crash with the right you can crash with the right hand on the same cymbal you crash with the left hand. Okay, you can play this on one cymbal. Okay, so we're going to crash right hand on the right side of the kit, then play right, left, single strokes on the snare for 2 E-ender, single strokes on the 3 for on the high tom, 3 E-ender. Then we're going to come down to the right hand for the snare on the 4, and then crash with the left hand at the end of the bar on the left side of the kit. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you just have one crash cymbal, that'll look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so use the same sticking, but just hit that same crash cymbal. Okay, you still want to play with the right at the start of the bar, left at the end of the bar. Okay, now beneath that bar, you've got an F, which is short for forte, which means loud. So you want to bring up the dynamic from the previous section, which was obviously played at mezzo forte. So now we're at loud forte. So let's try that first bar of section B. We'll try it 4 times through just to get hold of the sticking, hitting right and left crashes. So hitting those upbeat crashes as well on the end of 4. Let's try bar 13 4 times through. And then in the second bar of section B, we've got a crash on the 1 again with the bass drum for a quarter note. We've got an accent on that crash again, so you're going to hit that with emphasis. Now it's the start of the bar, so we're going to hit that with the right hand, so you can play that again on the right side of the kit if you've got that right crash. We've got 16 notes on the snare drum on the 2 again, so 2 E-ender, just the single strokes. And then for the 3, we've got 8th notes, and the 4 we've got 8th notes as well. So you've got 3 and 4 and for the second half of that bar, and you're just going round the kit. So we've got a 3 with the right hand, and a 3 with the left hand on high tom, 4 on the mid tom with the right hand, and a 4 left hand on floor tom. And you can see we've got accents on those tom notes. Okay, so the and 4 and accented. So we need to play them with more emphasis, more force on those notes. So you've got a 3 at forte, and then accented and 4 and. So that whole bar sounds like this. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's try that bar now, the second bar of section B 4 times through. And now we'll try both of those bars, so bars 13 and 14, the first 2 bars of section B. Just make sure we can link up those crashes. 'Cause remember, we've got that and a 4 at the end of the first bar of section B with the crash of the left hand, and then we've got that crash on the 1 at the start of the second bar. Okay, so we get that left, right. All right, so we just want to try and really tidy that up. So just to demonstrate that at the end of the bar, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll get that upbeat with the left hand on the end of 4, downbeat with the right hand on the 1. Okay, so we just want to make sure we can do that. Okay, so we'll loop those 2 bars 4 times through, just really working on that and 4 with the crash, left, right. Okay, remember if you've only got one crash, both notes on that one crash, but keep the sticking the same. Let's try bars 13 and 14 4 times through. And in the third bar of section B, we're playing the same rhythm that we played in the first bar of section B. We're just changing up the orchestration, so where we're playing that rhythm. So we're still crashing on the 1 with the right hand, so we'll crash on the right side of the kit, and we've got an accent on that note, played with the bass drum. And then the 16th notes are on the high tom on the 2, so you've got 2 E-ender on high tom as single strokes. On the 3, you're playing the 16 notes on the mid tom, again as single strokes. The 4 is played on the floor tom, and then we're still going to crash on the and 4 with the bass drum with the left hand on the left side of the kit. Again, that note's accented. Okay, so that bar we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you accent in those crashes at the start and end of the bar. So right crash, right side of the kit, left crash on the left side of the kit. Or again, if you've only got one crash, playing both on that one crash. Just keep it sticking the same. So let's try that bar now. So bar 15 4 times through. last bar of that line, which is the last bar of section B, we're just bringing things down now, just simplifying the rhythm. So we just got a quarter note on the crash, quarter note on the bass drum at the same time, so we're hitting those in unison. Then we've got quarter notes on the hi-hat for the 2 and 3. We've got a bass drum on the and of 3, and then we're playing a snare and floor tom in unison on the 4 for a quarter note, okay? You've got an accent at the start and end of the bar again. So you're crashing the right side of the kit on the 1, then you're playing 2, 3 on the hi-hat with the right hand, then you're playing and on the bass drum, and a 3 on the bass drum, and then snare drum and floor tom in unison on the 4 as an accent. Okay, so let's just try just that bar 4 times through. And you can see beneath the bar on the and of 3, the dynamics change to MF, which is short for mezzo forte. So you're still at forte for the first 3 beats of the bar, the 1, 2, and 3, and then you're changing during that 3rd beat on the and of 3 to mezzo forte, bringing the dynamic down. Okay, still accenting that 4 though. So and 4, begin 4. So let's try that bar, which is bar 16, 4 times through. And now we'll try bars 15 and 16 back to back. So again, you've got that and 1. So and of 4 on the crash and the 1 at the start of the last bar. So just making sure we've got that nice fluency between those, that upbeat and downbeat. So let's try bars 15 and 16 back to back. And don't forget that dynamic change on the and of 3 in the last bar of this line. And now we'll try the whole of that line, so the whole of section B. So you've got crashes at the start and end of bars 1, 2, and 3, crash at the start of bar 4, and just bring things down for the rest of bar 4 in that line, okay? So let's put that all together. A nice section this is, so let's try and see if we can play the whole line. And now we'll try section B in time with the backing track. So this is the solo section of the piece. So all of those accented notes on the crashes and the toms in bar 2 are played with the rest of the band. Okay, so they need to be really precise because everyone's hitting those notes. And the other notes which aren't accented are soloed notes. So it's just us as the drummer playing those notes. So we're basically soloing around band hits. So all the band are playing really tight together on the hits, and the drummer's just soloing within those hits, like in between the hits. Okay, so just make sure your rhythm's really solid and your time's really solid, because it needs to be in this section, because if it's not, you're really going to stand out because you're not going to be playing in time with the rest of the band. Okay, so let's try the whole of section B now in time with the backing track. So now we come into the final line of the piece. You can see we've got the letter C in a box at the start of the final line, just letting you know it's section C of the song, so a new section. And the first 2 bars of section C, you can see we've got the same 2-bar groove that we played in section A. So we're coming back to that familiar 2-bar groove. So we brought things down at the end of section B, back to mezzo forte, and we're hitting that same 2-bar groove that we had in section A. Okay, so if we look at the final 2 bars of the piece, we've got 1 bar of groove in the second from last bar, and then we've got a fill in the last bar. Okay, so that groove we're playing in the second from last bar is the same as the first bar of the 2-bar groove. Okay, but we're just changing up the crash. So instead of crashing on the 1, we're crashing on the 2. So we're crashing on that backbeat, which is again quite common in funk. Okay, crashing on that 2. So you can see we've still got an accent on the crash, so that's going to be hit with some more force on the 2, with some emphasis on that second beat. And then we come into the last bar. We've got a fill for beats 1 and 2. So the rhythm is 1 and 2 and we rest for 3 and 4. So we've got a half note rest for 3 and 4. So the fill, we're going to play a single stroke, so you're just going round the kit again. So we've got 1 hit on each drum. So we've got snare with right hand, left on high tom, right on mid tom, left on low tom. So around the kit are single strokes. Okay, and you can see we've got accents on all 4 of those notes. We need to hit those notes with more emphasis. Beneath that final bar, you've got an FF, which is short for fortissimo, which means very loud. So we played the groove in the second from last bar with crescendo, so we're getting louder, and we want to get louder to fortissimo. So we're starting the second from last bar at mezzo forte, and we're playing a crescendo through the bar to fortissimo into the last bar. So our dynamic change has to be 2 levels. We're going from mezzo forte through forte all the way to fortissimo. Okay, so we're going to try the last 2 bars of the piece now 4 times through. We've got that familiar groove we've already played. We're just crashing on that 2, and then we're playing that half bar fill on the 1 and 2 and at fortissimo with accents. Okay, so we loop those 2 bars 4 times. And now we'll try the whole of section C, so that final line of the piece, you've got that 2-bar groove, and then we play the first bar of the 2-bar groove again, we're just crashing on that 2, and then we finish with that 2-beat fill. Okay, and don't forget that dynamic change, that crescendo through the second from last bar into the last bar at fortissimo. And now we'll try the last line in time with the backing track. Okay, so you brought things down for this section, so we're back at mezzo forte, about our normal playing level. We've got that 2-bar groove, just stay solid again with the groove, and just make sure in the 3rd bar of the last section you're just getting louder, finishing at fortissimo. So those 4 notes in the last bar we play with accents at fortissimo, they're all hits with the band again, so just make sure they're really precise, because obviously if you're not playing them precise, you're going to be slightly out of time with the rest of the band. Okay, so let's try the last line in time with the backing track. So now we're going to put the whole piece together, so we just need to make sure we can link all of these parts. So you've got the first part, so line 1, which is like the intro, just building the energy, starting at mezzo forte, starting with the cymbal, then bringing in the bass drum, finishing that line with the Motown fill. We've got a double bar line at the end of line 1, just letting you know it's a musical change. So then we come into section A, which is where your 2-bar groove comes in. So we need to keep that solid 2-bar groove. That's where the brass joins in, the start of section A. We've got that double quaver change up at the end of the first line of section A, that Batman style groove. And then we come into the next line of section A, where we're playing the same 2-bar groove. We're changing up the end of the line, this time with a 1-bar fill. We've got to build the energy in that fill. So we've got a crescendo, which takes us into section B. So we're at forte for section B. We've got those band hits on the accents that we're hitting with the rest of the band, and we're soloing in between those band hits. Okay, so have some fun in section B. And then we're bringing things down to mezzo forte at the end of the section, which brings us into section C, the final section of the song, where we're just coming back to that solid groove, and we're finishing, building the energy with that crescendo, coming to fortissimo, a big finish with those band hits together with the rest of the band. Okay, so we're going to try and link all of that and play the whole piece. And now we'll try the whole piece in time with a backing track. So remember, we practiced through all the parts of this piece at song tempo, which is 105 beats per minute. So remember, that's the tempo you want to get to eventually. So take as long as you need to get to that tempo. So start at a nice, slower tempo that's comfortable for you to make sure you're playing these parts comfortably. That's the main thing. If you're not playing comfortably, they're going to sound uncomfortable. Okay, so you want to make sure you're playing them comfortably, learn the parts, get comfortable with the parts physically, then add in the dynamics. Then once you're comfortable, bump up the tempo until you eventually get to that song tempo, and that's when you want to play it with the music, okay? So don't rush to get to that point. Make sure you're really putting in the practice and sounding good with these parts before you rush the tempo. Okay, so just make sure you remember that and have fun with this piece. Nice 60s funk style rock piece, and we'll see you in the next lesson.